All right, so you see that variables and conditionals are really the key to creating the game. And it's likely that right in the beginning, a common pattern for these games is to you're going to want to set some of these variables, and we could set it right here. But it's the common pattern is to have kind of like a welcome to the game or game intro kind of passage, and then have them start the game, and you set all your variables there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the passage, new passage button. So we actually have a use for this. And I have this passage right here. I'll double click in it and I'll call this, I don't know, game start. And, or I'll call it MLB Commissioner game or something like that. And this is where we would start our, we'd set any initial variables. So we have the date that we have to handle. And honestly, doing a date, there would be a lot of logic that we need to build into it. It'd probably be easier to do this with some straight JavaScript because you have an opportunity to do this, but we'll do it kind of a rough way. So set day to, and now I'm just going to type a number. And when we type a number, we don't have to put it in quotes. If you put it in quotes, then it thinks it's a string. So if you were to try to add two strings together, it does something called concatenation. So if I had this in quotes and then I had maybe the number 10 in quotes and I tried to add them, it would actually become 1011 as a string, like 1011 as a string, right? So we're going to set this day to 11. And well, let's boost something. Welcome to our game to show you the hard choices the MLB commissioner faces in this time of COVID pandemic, right? So something like that. And so we're going to ask the people to start the game, start game, and we need to go to our passage. If you remember, we want to go to that congratulations. Now this is where it could get you. The thing is, I didn't talk about this in the last ones, but don't put spaces in between these characters. Watch, if I put a space here and then I add the name, and that's the name, I went and I just cut and pasted the name of it from up there, and I do this. Now you see it added this, whoops, it added this new one, and we don't want that, right? So I'm going to delete that. Yes, delete it. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to take away this space, and see, now it goes to the correct one. That's our little dangerous thing you should know that I didn't mention in the other thing, that those spaces will get you, because I'm sure maybe by now you've tried to type a space and you're frustrated. So I want this to be the start. So I'll actually just click on this and say start story here, and notice the little rocket ship launcher symbol goes up to here. So now we have this game set right here. So I have our day to 11. So we need to go into our first one, and we say, oh, the date is March 10th. So I'm done. So I'm going to go set this date to 10. Oops. Did it save it? It did save it. Okay. Click over here. Today is March. Well, let's get rid of the 10th because that'll be hard to do like 11th, 12th, 13th. Well, most of them have 1st, right? So March, and I'm going to say print day, right? And so that's going to go ahead and print our day right there to March 10th. And then we're going to go out partying, or we're going to go to work. Either way, we don't need to do anything there because we can actually just increment that there. So I'm going to give myself some space here. And whoops, I was playing with something else here. And I'm going to say, I have to do some logic to our variable. And so I have to use that same set again. So I'm going to set, and I'm going to say day, and I am going, well, we could say 2 if we were using a string, but we're using numbers. So we're going to say set day plus equals 1. And in logic, when you say plus equals, it's a way to increment something by 1 and also set that variable at the same time. It's kind of a way to do that. Another thing we could do is set day to day plus 1. That should work as well. But I'm going to go ahead and do it this shorthand way of plus equals 1. And to check out that it worked, we're going to go today. Today is March print day 2020, right? Just to show that we have this done. So let's close that and let's, well, we don't have to click on that. We'll hit play. All right, so now we're gonna start the game here and we're gonna go celebrate. We're gonna go to day 1 and you see that instead of March 10th, we now have it as March 11th. And so we can kind of track how many days since. And let's keep doing that. Let's give us a little loop here to do this. And I have to get out of this. And I'm going to go back to pandemic. And so day 1, before we get to day 2, I'm just going to go in here. And we don't need this day 2 anymore. So I'm going to get rid of this, right? You shake off your hangover, arrive at the office. Let me close this. Let me trash this so that we don't have it screwing us up. And so now we're back to where we have this pattern. And so day 1, today is blah, blah, blah. So let's give us some choice. Today is March 11th, 2020. You arrive at your office with a stack of paperwork about the Astros cheating scandal, right? I totally hate the Astros right now. So you arrive with about Astros cheating scandal. As you're reading it, the NBA just suspended league play for the season, right? Because that's when they did it. They did it on March 11th. So see, look, I actually have some reporting here. What do you do? And we're gonna say we're gonna make 2 choices here. We'll be like keep reading the Astros dossier, and we'll go to yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Keep reading the Astros dossier, and we'll say I don't know, I'm just gonna say suspend spring training, right? So we'll actually you know what, let's not suspend it yet. We want to say call a meeting as something else, right? But I'm more interested in this keep reading the Astros dossier loop here. So I'm going to close that. And so I've got this keep reading the Astros dossier. And so you spend the day reading the dossier. And what we want to do then is after they've read it, and we can actually just do it in first. It's probably better just to keep it up top, right? Set, again, we're going to say day plus equals 1 here. So what we're going to do here is add a new passage called keep working right here. And I'm going to close that. Now, I had just added it to test it, and so I've seen this. If this doesn't create one and you have the X, you can actually just go ahead and add it and change this one to keep working, and see, it'll fix itself. But if it never adds it for some reason, you can go ahead and do it that way. I just wanted to show you that. So in this, we're going to put in some crazy logic. And let's start with today is March. Now, we've been using the print command. We actually don't need that. After I further looked into the documentation, we can just say day, and that will actually work for us. So we can just ignore print now and just type in our variables this way. And today is March 20, whatever. So now I want to do some complicated if statement here to say, on March 12th, the NHL suspended, right? So I want them to consider, should they start calling their meeting now, or should they continue reading the Astros dossier? And so first I'm going to put in this brackets. And these brackets, what they do is collapse all white space. So like returns and things like that. And I'm doing it right here because I want the first message to be in line. So I'm going to say, today is March 20th thing. So if day is 12, right? If the day is the 12th. And then we have to put it inside these brackets. And I'm going to say the NHL has just suspended their season due to the pandemic, right? Now, one thing I'm going to need to put choices for them to go, because there's no end if statements in, if you've ever done any other programming, there's end ifs, but they don't have that. You can only have one kind of if context in Twine. So if you want to put if I type a break right here, because of these curly brackets, there would be no break. So you actually have to type what's an HTML break here, because Twine will take any HTML and render it, and we'll talk about that in the formatting in a video. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, right, we need this one to go to, you know, I'm going to go ahead and be cheap and easy and click on this to grab that and copy it and paste that in here. So, right, and the other one, so now we need to continue having a break. And our other one is call a meeting. So that one's easy enough to type. And so now if it's day 12, we'll see that. And that's the hook here. So everything in this is called a hook. So now we need to say, well, else if. So we want another condition, and we're going to force them to only pick the pandemic here. So else if, oops, else if, oh no, that's right. Else if we'll say day is greater than the 15th. So on March 16th, we force them to call a meeting. So I'm going to close that and put in our hook and say the calls for you to address the pandemic are getting too loud to ignore. And I'm going to put in a break. And down on the next line, I'm going to send them to only to call a meeting. And then on the last one, right, I'm going to put else. So this is our, like, if all else, if this condition isn't met and if this condition isn't met, then this is what they see. And so inside this hook, I'm going to say, I'll put a space here just for convenience. And I'm going to say, I'm going to let them just kind of do this again. Well, because we don't have a break here, I'm actually going to start it with the break. And then I'm going to put these two with a break between them right there, right? And so now this will create this logic for us of, you know, what happens. So let's test that out. Oops, close that. So now we see we've got this, this loop right here. We've got this going to there at some point. So let's go and test it. Play, right? Based on this, start a game. Let's celebrate day 1. We're going to keep reading. It's 11th and the NBA closed. Keep reading. You spent the day reading the dossier. So now it's the 12th and the NHL just suspended their season, but we're going to keep reading the Astros dossier. We're going to keep working. So 12th, 13th, we're just going to keep ignoring. 14th, keep ignoring. 15th, keep ignoring. So now the 16th, right? The calls for you to address the pandemic are getting too loud to ignore, and we're forcing them now to get into the there. So what you see there is how to get all this logic put in, and there's some other logic. Again, if you look at the Harlow documentation, there's also something called unless, where we can kind of have the negative. We can set not with that. It's just about figuring out how you can, sorry, I'm just rolling through here, not even in the right spot. And also the conditionals would be in there about how to do greater than, less than, things like that. That's all in this documentation. I'll see if I can write up something that's a little easier than this. But obviously when you go to make your own, if you choose to make your own game, know that that logic's there. And if you need me to help you, I'll help you kind of figure out what the correct syntax is.